Welcome back to Big Mouth and welcome to Sunday's edition of the dceu Daily. And today, here it is. I've been sitting on Wonder Woman 84 for a very long time. Well, I haven't been sitting on her. That would be a crime, wouldn't it? And who would want to sit on Gal? She's a goddess, isn't she? So yes, what I'm trying to say is I saw the test screening many months ago, and then a couple of months ago, the full version of this movie. And it's really hard for me to decide what kind of film Wonder Woman 84 is. Let's be absolutely clear here. It's definitely not the disaster the Snyder acolytes are trying to tell you that it is, but it's not the perfection the other people are telling you it is either. It's some way in the middle. Let me tell you a story about my cousin's son. You see, over here, they teach them to hunt young. So anyway, it was apparently time for his son, his 12-year-old son, 13-year-old son, to hold a hunting rifle. So this doofus gets the rifle, holds it upside down, squeezes the trigger, and shoots his foot off. Yup, and he's been in a clinic ever since. Why am I telling you this story? Why do you care? Because basically, my cousin's son is Patty Jenkins. You see, that child should never have been in control of that gun. I think we can all agree on that. And the big problem is here, this film, Wonder Woman 84, exposes Patty Jenkins to the kind of director that she is. Do you remember the discussion we had the other day about Wonder Woman 2017 and how I believe it was heavily influenced by Zack Snyder? But I'll go further. The No Man's Land scene everyone goes on about is one of the most gorgeous sequences in cinematic history. I am telling you, without any insider knowledge, that is Zack Snyder's sequence. I'm telling you that now, here and today. It looks exactly like the kind of cinematography that Zack would do. We all know that. We've got to stop kidding ourselves there. But this is not about slaughtering poor Patty Jenkins. But she has taken a lot of credit for Wonder Woman 2017. After all, her name's on the bloody door. She's the director, right? So why wouldn't we give her credit for No Man's Land? But I think that's a Zack Snyder movie. Now, she directed it clearly, but I think his influence, he was there, he helped with the choreography. He said it and she said that herself. We know that. That is a fact. I think his influence on that film is obvious. So we know he wasn't influencing Wonder Woman 84 at all. And it tells. Wonder Woman 84 starts with this most beautiful sequence back in Themyscira. Is that how you say it? Fantasy Island. I can never say Themyscira properly. Anyway. So we have got, I've already forgotten, Lily Aspel. We've got young Lily Aspel as young Diana. Young Diana on the island, on Fantasy Island. And it's the Amazonian Olympics. This is one of the biggest highlights of the movie. If it was up to me, and I put this on Twitter today, Lily Aspel as young Diana would have her own Wonder Woman Junior show, kind of about a young Diana on Fantasy Island. And I tell you what, Robin Wright would be her co-lead. Those two have got such great chemistry. So the whole idea of this sequence is that she's doing really well in the Olympics, but there comes a point where she, if I remember rightly, and I've only just seen it for the fourth time now, but I've literally just switched it off after a fourth viewing. But yeah, she loses her horse, right? And she cheats. She goes down this tunnel thing, doesn't she? And she cheats. And obviously, Robin Wright's character sees this and notices this, so she stops her. She literally pushes her to the ground. Now, this is the moment that young Lily Aspel from the UK, by the way, London. She's a local girl in the UK. She's a UK girl. I'm a UK lad. Awesome, isn't it? But she's so talented. Anyway, the acting from this kid at this moment is absolutely fantastic. You can see how broken her heart is because she doesn't understand. Why did you stop me from winning? I don't get it. And she explains to her, nothing in life is won when it's a lie. I can't remember the exact dialogue, but it's something like that, isn't it? And something that Diana repeats later on in the film. This sequence is beautifully shot, and it's a really big moment from the film. Then Wonder Woman 84 truly begins in 1984. And this is where you have to be very patient with this film. It's very slow. It builds up. It introduces Kristen Wiig, Barbara Manova. Basically, Kristen Wiig, should I say, is a really, really good actor, and she excels in this role. I think, personally, they failed to capture the friendship. It was there in the early stages of the film, and I think they did well when they're sitting down for a drink and they're talking and they're chewing the fat. I think it's a really good element. And I think something was missing from that moment to later on when she becomes Cheetah and when she becomes kind of the protector of Maxwell Lord. That White House scene is the moment when she knows, basically, if anything happens to Max, that wish is gone. She hasn't got this strength anymore, and she wants this strength. Now, a few people criticise Kristen Wiig's character for wishing to be glamorous and look so good and being attractive to men. I hate to tell you, some of you feminists and alt-left, but there are some women who do want to be attractive to men and to women, by the way, and to other genders. That's the truth. We don't all live on Twitter. We live in the real world, and we have an ego. And everyone wants to be Mr. Popular. Everyone wants to be loved. Let me explain to you who Barbara Manova is. She's me. She's me when I'm a kid. No one notices me when I'm a kid. Oh, they talk about my brother John, but not me. Not me. I'm the insignificant loser. Why can't you be more like your brother? This is Barbara Manova. No one's ever given her the time of day in their life until she meets Diana. And that means something to her when Diana goes, let's go for dinner. Because at first, Diana's blowing her off and saying, no, I'm very busy. So I identify with this character, the early stages of this character's development. So I like what Kristen's doing with this character and how Patty's directing her to be. So the first stages of Barbara's character is really, really good. And as we get in the movie, she's obviously, Maxwell Lord knows about the wishing crystal. He's been looking for it. He's been researching it. He knows where it is. He wants it. So that's that. Now we need to back up to not the very beginning of the film, but when we first go to 1984. So we're at this mall. We've got this robbery with these idiotic guys. This is the moment Patty has decided to represent men badly. Yes, there's a bunch of male idiots, and they're idiots, but Wonder Woman teaches these men a lesson. So basically, this is the first example where she's trying to make men look really bad. There's another example where every man who sees Barbara or Diana, hello, darling, all right, baby, all right, sexy. So there's a lot of toxic masculinity going on in this movie. At least in the first Wonder Woman, she hid it a bit. Of course, we had that bit when she goes in the army headquarters and they go, what? A woman? She can't be in here. So there was an example of it there. But in those days, that's how they reacted to women. So you kind of understood why they were doing it. But they only did it to make a point. It's like that moment in the boat in Wonder Woman 2017 when she tells Steve Trevor that a woman doesn't need a man for sexual satisfaction. Well, apart from me, I agree. But women do need me. Sorry, toxic male. Anyway, I'm joking. Don't take me seriously. So you've got that situation. Look, this is modern day Hollywood. I actually said to someone on the internet who was destroying Wonder Woman 84, I was defending it to a piece. I'll tell you my full thoughts on the film at the end, because even though there's bits I like, and I love the third act of this movie, by the way. People are ripping it to shreds. I think it works. I have many issues. Many issues with Wonder Woman 84 as an entire movie. But that third act, my God, from the moment, And this is a spoiler. This is a spoiler review from the moment Steve goes. And then she finds Maxwell Lord. And the whole stuff with Max and his son. You can't help but cry. That doesn't mean Wonder Woman 84 is the best film ever, by the way. But that final act is an emotional final act. Because you know what's interesting, actually? That moment when he's on the TV and he's getting them to make all these wishes. And you see the greed in humanity, the refusal to give up their gifts. Cheetah, Barbara, she never gives up. She has to be electrocuted by Wonder Woman to stop her. Now, this is interesting. Because she doesn't give it up, is she still Cheetah? I suppose we'll have to wait to the future. Who knows? An interesting situation. But something captured my heart then. Well, I was thinking, as these things were happening, you saw the hatred and the rioting in the streets, and people refusing to give up their greed, if you like. I was thinking about kind of all the Snyder acolytes. You know, I'm a big Zack Snyder fan. You know, I love his DC movies. But there's people, some of his fans take it too far. And you see the hatred for Jeff Johns. And there's an agenda with it. Oh, this is a bad film. Jeff Johns should never be involved with a Wonder Woman movie again. Let me be absolutely clear here. Jeff Johns co-wrote this movie. He didn't direct it. He wasn't the lead of this movie. Everything that happened with Wonder Woman 84 was of the will and wishes, no pun intended, of Patty Jenkins. Make no mistake about that. She wanted to work with Jeff Johns. They agree. They are on the same page. This movie is the way it is because Patty Jenkins wanted it that way. So, yeah, I was thinking this, all the hatred towards Jeff Johns, all this, trying to call it the worst film ever, it's horrible, things like that, right? So my review is going to be a bit more balanced. There's a lot of stuff the haters are saying I actually agree with. So the third act to me is really, really good. But I love Wonder Woman 2017's final act. I think that really, really works. But I also think the final act of this movie, listen, it's not what I wanted. I'm not saying this is the perfect third act. I'm not saying that at all. For me, Pascal and Wig are brilliant, but they're not, how can I say this? They're not really villains. Barbara Manova is this downtrodden female version of Clark Kent, if you like. She acts like him. She pushes her glasses in. And this is, as I say, I identify with, the Barbara Manova we first meet. But she's not a villain. I mean, the moment in the White House when Diana and Steve are there, all of a sudden, Barbara's there. I'm thinking, Babs, where did you come from? Where did you come from, Babs? So it was a bit weird how she just showed up. That was actually ridiculous. Oh, I know. I'll pop down the White House. How did she even get in? So how she got there is ridiculous. The fight between her and Wonder Woman's okay. There's some good moments in the White House. These are part of the issues of the movie. You see, the whole thing in the White House is just, it's okay. I'm not saying it's bad, but there's an element of it there's a bit actually, when I was watching it, I said, I've got to mention this in my review. The bit when Steve's about to pick up the sword, she goes, no, it's not their fault, because they've got to stop the security guards, right? And then you've got the whole thing in the open road sequence. Is it in the Middle East, right? The motivation for Diana and Steve to go after them and kind of have this whole action sequence seems kind of contrived. I'm thinking, isn't this a bit of an exaggeration? Yeah, you want to stop Maxwell Lord from doing this wish thing, but he's not exactly got a machine gun, but it's so dramatic. And let me just say, Hans Zimmer's score is perfect. I think Hans Zimmer's score is probably more than this film deserved, by the way. But this film this music, his score elevates the film more than it deserves to be elevated. But it's a brilliant score. So yeah, that's the kind of thing, the kind of open road sequence in the Middle East. I thought, when I saw the trailer months and months ago, before I saw the test screening, I was like, oh, this is going to be some awesome, fuck off battle. But it's not even that. And that sums up the whole film. So let's go back a bit, because I'm mixing you all up and going all over the place. So after the whole mouse sequence, listen, I think the mouse sequence is, I'm not going to mince my words. The mouse sequence isn't good at all, and it's just an excuse to cast a bunch of guys to represent men badly. We all know that. We all know what she's attempting to do in that sequence. I think there's a couple of young girls who steal some sunglasses, but they're allowed to get away with it, if I remember rightly, anyway. Comment down below if I'm wrong there. So, the mouse sequence isn't good. And she is trying to rip off that moment in Superman 3 when you've got everything going on. You've got Gus Gorman, deciding to be a computer nerd and go for the training scheme, and you've got all the crap going on in the street. It's pretty similar to that. But this is supposed to display Diana in 84 being a hero. And I love that little girl with the glasses and the way Diana winks at her and things like that. But again, that's even a wink to say, yeah, we've got these men sorted out, haven't we? So we know what they're trying to do. Then the film spends a very, very, very long time. And it's still a while till we see Steve Trevor. So there's a long, long build-up. And if I'm honest, during this build-up, I began to become bored. Pedro Pascal's performance in this film is absolutely fantastic. It really is. I'm not sure about the character's whole arc and if it was all earned, but I tell you what, his performance, the way he plays the character, is brilliant. My problem is that Maxwell Lord in the DC Comics is a much more interesting character than the guy in this film. And for me, personally, we should have just got the Maxwell Lord from the comics. That's just my personal opinion. But they like to change things. So they changed things. And so you've got, I've forgotten entirely what I was going to say now, because I've just got so much to say about this film. So you've got this big build-up. And as I say, I began to become quite bored. It took a long time. That's what I was going to say. Steve Trevor, Sam, or should we call him Sam Beckett, Quantum Leap. Who remembers the TV show Quantum Leap? One of my favourite shows ever made. So, in that show, Dr. Sam Beckett steps into the Quantum Leap accelerator and he time travels. The way he time travels, he literally leaps into other people's bodies. When he looks in the mirror, he sees the actual person, but it's actually Sam in there, while the other person is in the waiting room. So anyway, obviously Diana makes a wish. We've known that for a very, very long time. And eventually, not straight away, but eventually we see the watch shaking and all that. All of a sudden, this guy oh my God, that party though. I will get back to that in a minute, but that party when everyone was looking at Diana and Barbara, again, a demonstration of toxic masculinity. This is where we are now. This is, honestly, it's just really frustrating for a guy to actually see this. I'm not saying guys are not like that, but guess what? So are women. We're all as bad as fucking each other. Anyway, right, so the whole thing is, it's literally this guy, and all of a sudden this guy's coming up to her, and Diana's going, look, I don't know why you're following me. Is that a good Gal Gadot impression? Probably not. Anyway, this guy quotes Steve Trevor's words in Wonder Woman 1, Wonder Woman 2017. She stops. How do you know me? How do you know all that? Blah, 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 blah. And then the camera swizzles around, and it's our mate Chris Pine. First of all, let me say, I'm very happy to see Chris Pine in this movie. He's one of the only movie stars left. He looks like a movie star. He's as cool as any movie star I grew up kind of standing. But listen to me. It's a horrible way to bring him back. The whole Quantum Leap idea, seeing him looking in the mirror, it was a total cringe fest. It didn't work for me. It was great to see them back together, but it simply doesn't work. And the way they both accept it so easily, it's like, really? Mate, you were an everyday fighter pilot, and now whatever you were. And now you're just accepting this. Yeah, I was in this other place. It was kind of nice, aka heaven. Let's hope he wasn't in hell. He wasn't that bad, was he? I know he's a man, so maybe Patty Jenkins thinks all men should be in hell. I don't know. And so It's a terrible concept. Let me tell you, let me make it quite clear where I stand on this. If you want Steve Trevor, aka Chris Pine, in all the sequels, then don't bloody kill him off in the first movie. I understand. They killed him off. It works. It's a sacrifice. And you've got that big moment when Ares is trying to tempt Diana to the dark side. And because of that death, because of that sacrifice, you know, she's in this difficult situation. So it's quite an important moment. But there's other ways of doing that, right? Ares could have made him vanish, right? Ares could have made him disappear. He could have been trapped somewhere in some kind of phantom zone-y kind of place. There were ways of means, and then he escapes from there, or someone, or the wish brings him, you know, in 1984. That could have actually worked. Or, as you've killed him off, don't bring Steve Trevor back. Of course, you kind of have to if you want to go down this, you know, romantic element. But how about if there's a DC character in 1984 Diana could have teamed up with? Not romantically, but just teamed up with. That would have been kind of cool, right? Then we just accept that Steve Trevor's gone. But of course, Patty loves working with Chris Pine. We love seeing Chris Pine. Chris is a legend. I love him. But that quantum leap concept, for me, simply doesn't work. I'm sorry. It simply doesn't. So anyway, we spend or waste a lot of time with Diana and Steve being together, holding hands, doing it, blah, 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 blah. We don't see the sex, obviously, because is it a PG-13 or whatever it is. So we spend a lot more time. There's a lot of dialogue in this film. And then here's the elephant in the room. Because in the third act, we do get a little bit more action, but there's not much action in this film. And as many people have probably already told you, most of the action is in the trailers. Why is there not much action in this film? I don't understand. But as I say, Wonder Woman 84 does expose Patty Jenkins. Maybe she's a bit like Cathy Yan. She's not proficient enough to do action. That would say, and that would kind of lead us to thinking that maybe, just maybe, the action in Wonder Woman 2017 wasn't done by Patty Jenkins. It was done by Zack Snyder. And that's why it's so awesome. And there's a lot of it. And there's a lot of great moments. And it looks like Zack Snyder choreography and stunt work. The kind of stuff we're used to. Yes, Wonder Woman 2017 is not just influenced by Zack Snyder. It's pretty much his movie with Patty Jenkins credited as a director. It's the truth. It's obvious. All you have to do is compare the films. So eventually we get the whole open road sequence in the Middle East. We get the White House sequence. It's not a terrible sequence, but again, and I'll go back to that moment when she says to Steve Trevor, "No, Steve, don't pick up the sword. It's not their fault." I kind of thought about this at first. I thought, well, that's nice. That's good, isn't it, that Diana's like this, so she doesn't want anyone to be killed. Obviously, I don't think it was an accident. She was telling a man not to do this. Obviously, us men would just kill everyone because we're just horrible people, aren't we? But obviously, Diana doesn't have her sword in this movie. I don't know. She must have left it at home. She put it in the wash and it got lost in a drain or something. So there's more pacifism in this movie than there was in the first film. Zack Snyder. Because Zack Snyder isn't a pacifist in his movies. It's obvious, isn't it? But in this movie, it's all about peace and love and not giving in to greed. This is the kind of thing Patty's trying to do. Listen, in a perfect world, there would be no violence. But we're not living in the real world. We want to watch a film where there is a bit of violence and action and Diana's using her sword and her shield. No shield! No shield! Not even a shield? Not even a shield? Did she use the shield? I can't remember now. This is how bad. This is why I don't like reviewing movies. As soon as I've seen the movie, and I've seen it so many times now, I forget things. But I swear the shield isn't in this movie. So we look at this film. And in all honesty, I'll say it's not a horrible film. But what makes it, from the outside looking in, as a horrible film, is how disjointed it is. You get this really great opening sequence on Fantasy Island with Lily Aspel, who's absolutely fantastic. I said on Twitter today, I wish the film could have just ended after that sequence, but it would have had to have been more longer, wouldn't it? Otherwise, we would have had a 10-minute movie. But interestingly enough, with that sequence on Fantasy Island, maybe they shouldn't have shown us it all at once. Maybe it should have been cut up and put in during the movie. So you got the opening sequence, then you cut off from it, then you keep on going back to it. Maybe then it spreads out to the lesson and the moral of the movie. Maybe if I was the director, maybe that's what I would have done. But it's a great sequence to see in its entirety anyway. So it's really, really good. And you think, wow, if we're going along these lines, because it's pretty much not repeating what they did in the first one, but starting off at that kind of point. Also, that sequence in Fantasy Island is a bit difficult to tell. Is that before what we saw in Wonder Woman 2017 or after? Just before? Is it? What is Antiope? No, is Antiope the mother or the aunt? Anyway, the one who dies. I mentioned her. You see, I've got a crap memory. I've already forgotten the actress's name I mentioned earlier. The one I said should be in a young Diana TV streaming series, all right? Robin Wright. I just had to think of Santa Barbara. That's the little cheap soap she started off in before she found love. Is that what you want to call it, with Sean Penn? Anyway. And so I don't know where that's placed in context of the, kind of the scenes on Fantasy Island in Wonder Woman 2017. Not particularly important, but I did notice it didn't really try and explain things. The film's interesting because things just seem to happen. Like Cheetah just showing up in the White House. It's like when Steve first goes and she's literally got the whip. It goes around the plane, but all of a sudden the whip disappears. She's kind of flying and listening to Steve's voice, but you can't see the whip anymore. It's down by her side, and you think, how did it get there? Again, not a big deal, but these things do kind of matter. I think as an entire film, for me personally, it bores me in the early stages. And if it wasn't for the fact that I watched the test screening, then I had to stay there. And I love DC, and I love Wonder Woman as a DC character. If it was just a random movie, and if I was just watching it at home, I would have just switched it off. But here's the thing: as a movie, I don't think it works as an entire movie. All the scenes when Steve's changing his clothes and then Barbara's, got the high heels on. I start to get a little bit bored. I did notice this film is not just set in the 80s. It feels like it was made in a kind of 80s style movie. Someone said it's a mixture of the tones of Zack Snyder and Richard Donner. This film is inspired by Richard Donner. But where does Patty Jenkins come in? Is this a Patty Jenkins film? Or a film inspired by Richard Donner's Superman the Movie, a film I absolutely love, as anyone who's followed me for any length of time knows that. But this is the problem with directors in the modern era. Half of them are not even fit enough, to ride Marlon Brando's golf caddy. The thing they drive, or I don't know anyway. I don't play golf. But the point being, half these directors that are directing today will not be remembered in 30 to 50 years' time. Not like the directors me and you grew up with. That's the difference. Most of them are bums. So when it comes to actually making a film with a good story and putting it all together, they fail. When you ask them to shoot in IMAX and create a light show, they're good at it because it camouflages the problems of their movies. And most movies being made today won't be remembered, just like the directors. So as a film, Wonder Woman 84 simply doesn't work, and there's too many quiet moments. This film's 2.5 hours long, and people have called it too long. They called it too long because it drags in too many segments in the early stages of the film. That's why they're saying it's too long. I love long movies. I like the fact this movie is 2.5 hours, but they didn't do enough within the 2.5 hours to justify those 2.5 hours. So I think the third act is perfectly serviceable for the emotional element. She wants to tell, she wants to leave a feel-good message in the film. This is what she's trying to do. But ultimately, the fight with Cheetah's okay. It looks okay. But I just don't feel it. There's not enough there. The friendship wasn't developed properly, which is a shame. So basically, the third act is very, very emotional. It does work for what Jenkins is trying to do. I'll give her that. So by the end of the film, you do feel all emotional. And then you get the last bit. It's Christmas. Everyone's dancing in the snow. She bumps into the guy whose body Steve Trevor quantum leaped into. And they have a nice little laugh and a chat. I don't know if they're going to be dating in the future. Who knows? Who knows what they're playing at? But this is the thing. So as a film, I can't give it a very big rating. I can't lie to my subscribers and people who are randomly watching this video. But what I can say is that final act achieves what Patty Jenkins wanted it to achieve. It's not the best third act ever, but it's not the worst either. It at least works to reach its goal, to make you cry, to make you feel emotional, to make you think, yeah, greed and hate are all in the same, and we must resist those urges to have it all. So it does work. But when I look at this whole movie, if this was 2 episodes of a Wonder Woman streaming TV show, it would have worked. That story works with the way they want to do it, with very little action. In fact, it's kind of made in a way where you don't want to spend too much money on the action, so you avoid it. But I believe the action's avoided because I don't think Patty Jenkins is proficient enough in doing action. Because I believe Zack Snyder was the one who did most of the action in Wonder Woman 2017. He was hugely involved in that film. In fact, he may as well have directed the whole thing. That's just my opinion. And so we've got this situation now with this film. I ranked it quite high the other day. That's because I don't like giving people a poor opinion of a film. I don't want to infect your mind about a movie till you've seen it. So obviously if you've seen this without seeing the film, I'm going to infect your mind a bit and you're going to go in with negative thoughts. Please don't do that. Everyone's opinions are valid. And if you go into this film and you love it and you don't agree with me, that's absolutely fine. I'm just speaking my truth here. So now that we've done this full review, I would definitely put it a lot lower down. It was too high for me the other day, and I thought about this a lot. And I can't keep it in my ranking. I think that Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, the first Wonder Woman are the top 3 without question. And I think it's no coincidence who was involved with all 3 of those films. And obviously Wonder Woman 2017, Zack was involved in an unofficial capacity, but he was officially running the franchise. Wonder Woman 84 does worry me for the future. Are the right people running this franchise? Because as I say, as a film, for me, it simply doesn't work. Does it work as a franchise movie? No. And these are Wonder Woman 84 are the consequences of being resistant to a connective universe, which is what this franchise should have been from the very beginning. And if Zack Snyder had stayed on running this baby, that's exactly what would have happened. Batman and Superman would have been in Aquaman. Bruce Wayne, Batfleck, would have been in Wonder Woman 2017, as he was in Suicide Squad. He was even in a post-credit scene. So these are the things, these are the problems by not giving Snyder the freedom they should have given him from the very beginning. If they did, we wouldn't have these problems. We have another DC Extended Universe film now that is problematic. Let me be clear. A lot of people say this film's divisive. It's not divisive because it's not controversial. To be divisive, you have to be controversial. There's nothing in this film interesting enough, should I say, I can't even speak properly, can I? There's nothing in this film interesting enough to actually be controversial or divisive. So you can't say it's divisive. Some people are saying, wow, this is an amazing film, it's so different. But I think even the people who are pouring love all over it That's what it does, the film. It literally does nothing for 3/4 of the film, but the third act gives you the feels. It's very clever. So by giving you the feels and what it does, you kind of forget that the rest of the film was a non-event and was kind of dull. And that's the thing I've been sitting on ever since I saw the test screening. And I didn't want to come out so negative about the film, so I tried to be positive. So if I gave anyone a false direction of how I felt about it, I'm sorry. But I believe in keeping things to myself a bit about films that haven't been seen by the public before. And that's why I get to see these films before anyone else, because I'm discreet. But now that it's out there and we're all seeing it, I can be honest. This is not a rubbish bad movie, but it's also not a great movie. This is not a Wonder Woman film that's going to live in the memory. It's not the kind of thing you can put in cinemas and get away with it. As I say, not because it's bad, because it's a non-event. Because the good stuff in this film only happens at the very beginning and at the very end. And as I say, the open road sequence and the Washington sequence, the White House sequence are okay. Nothing special. And again, nothing has to be the greatest movie. Every DC movie doesn't have to be like, flawless and all of that. But it has to be something that sticks in the memory. And this film, apart from the very beginning in Themyscira and at the end with the kind of giving you the feels, and it does, it gave me the feels. It actually makes you feel guilty for kind of not really enjoying the rest of the movie, apart from Fantasy Island and the end, the third act. I think that's okay. That's where it works just a little bit. But as I've said, as a film, Wonder Woman 84 simply doesn't work. Pedro Pascal, great performance. Chris Pine, Gal Gadot, all of them. Kristen Wiig, she's brilliant. She's brilliant as Barbara Manova. But unfortunately, as a superhero movie in its entirety, it simply, for me, isn't entertaining enough. It isn't captivating enough. It reminds me, as I said, it reminds me of Superman 3 a lot and Superman 2. And Superman 2 bothered me when I first saw it because it's a really good film. The fight with the three villains, Zod, Non and Ursa, Superman fighting them is brilliant. Superman emotionally giving up his powers is a great moment. But the middle of the film is a lot of messing about with and not a lot happening. You've got the three villains going around picking on the sheriff. It kind of gets boring until you get to the last bit. So you've got a good opening and a good third act. It's the same with this film. It has the same problems. And the difference is between the MCU and the DCEU. MCU movies don't have to be great every time. You know why? Because it's another puzzle on the fixture. It's just another piece putting it in because it's a franchise. They're telling an interconnected story. So Ant-Man doesn't have to be good. Or it doesn't have to be the best thing ever because Ant-Man's okay. Both of them are. But they're not the best superhero films ever, and they don't have to be because it's just a piece on the jigsaw. But if you're making a franchise with just self-contained movies, every individual movie has to be great in its own right. And we don't have that in the DC Extended Universe. We have it with Man of Steel, we have it with Batman vs. Superman, and we have it with Wonder Woman 2017. I think Aquaman is a really, really good film. It's not the best superhero film ever, but it's a really good film, as is Shazam. But Wonder Woman 84 as a film isn't that. It's got a good opening and a good ending in terms of giving you the feels and being emotional. So where would I put it on my ranking? Well, as I said, top 3, Batman v Superman. No, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Wonder Woman 2017. Then I think it definitely will be Aquaman next. What we got after that, I still like the studio executed Suicide Squad. So that will probably be next. Shazam. Then it will be Wonder Woman 84. Then Birds of Prey. That's where I'm looking at now. So it's come down already. Because as I say, this is an honest review. And I didn't want to be too negative earlier. So that's how I think about the film. And I want you to tell me how you feel. But this has got to be a big wake-up call for Warner Media, Jim Lee and Walter Hamada. That maybe they should think about bringing back Snyder. Because right now, unless Jim Lee has got a super duper plan with the multiverse strategy and what they're doing in Flashpoint, unless they've got something that's really going to change it up and create this device, this diverse kind of franchise that's got so many, knots to its bow, right? So you've got all these different, edges and ends of this franchise by splitting them up into Earths. Then that's interesting. And if they execute that really well in Flashpoint, then we've got a good future. But seeing that film worries me. And now we know why Warner Media said to Patty Jenkins while she was shooting Wonder Woman 84, we're not sure this is the way we should be going with this film. Their concerns were valid. When they changed the third act of Wonder Woman 2017, their concerns were valid. And they've been, both times the studio have posed questions to her, they've been right as she's been wrong. So maybe it is time for Patty Jenkins to walk away. Maybe her threat isn't bad news. Maybe it will be best for all parties. But the problem with that is the loyalty that Gal Gadot has towards her. Would it cost us our Wonder Woman? So again, we're talking about a film that hasn't really left the imprint or mark it should have done. And that's a shame. Comment down below, like, share and subscribe. And I'll be back tomorrow with even more DCEU Daily. See you again soon.